So, what do you guys want to talk about? What is up, guys? You are watching a HSP podcast, the Jersey Wrecking Crew on the Give Us a Shot Network. Make sure you give us a like and subscribe on the YouTube, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss one single second of HSP on the Give Us a Shot Network. Trendsetter is joining me, my tag team partner. I am Jeff Martin, and we've got your NXT preview. NXT Deadline comes to you this Saturday from the great state of Minnesota, as just the body would say. And we are here live and in living color. And also make sure you follow us on all our social media at High Spot Podcast. And also make sure you listen to us on all podcast platforms. So if you can't watch HSP, make sure you listen to us on every single podcast platform. So if you're on that treadmill and you're at the gym, make sure you listen to Jeff and the Trendsetter. And anyway, Trendsetter, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Doing well, man. Looking forward to this deadline event we're going to be talking about right now. Like Eric Bischoff said, and which we'll talk about during the show, this is a huge dynamic in terms of what's going on, not only in terms of the roster, but we'll do it dissecting this card.
Excited for NXT Deadline, and we got your preview. So let's get started. Tag team titles are on the line. It's going to be Axiom and Nathan Frazier, your tag team champions. They're going to go up against the Charlie Dempsey's squad, the No Quarter Catch crew, and that is the team of. Listen, I like Tavian Heights. We'll get to him in just a few seconds. And Miles Bourne. Why I like Tavian Heights is because he went on an excursion to Japan a couple months back to Pro Wrestling Noah and rave reviews. And I think it's a good idea when these guys are allowed to go to excursions, which basically means that they get to go to another company, sometimes in Mexico or Japan. And if you're a wrestling fan of the 90s, guys like Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, those guys went to these excursions and they honed their craft. So what better way to do that for a guy like Tavian Heights, who really hasn't been used that much on NXT roster, and he gets to go to Pro Wrestling Noah and learn from the very best, learn that strong style, comes back. It can only make him so much better. And now him and Miles Bourne get a shot at the tag team titles against a team trendsetter that, in my opinion, is ready to explode because these guys have not gotten on the same page in quite a while, yet they're still the tag team champions. And double duty for Nathan Frazier because he's also involved in the men's Iron Survivor Challenge, which we'll discuss towards the end of the show. But to me, this is just the inevitable. And I don't know if it happens at this particular pay-per-view, this premium live event, but it is absolutely inevitable that Nathan Frazier and Axiom, that this whole dynamic, this whole team, or they're hanging by a thread, I think there's on the verge of it really going towards the way where these guys just will not be able to coexist anymore. And it's getting to that point, but will it happen at Deadline this Saturday?
Well, listen, isn't that always the classic build up what's going on when it comes to tag teams? The fact that, you're doing well, you do the Cinderella story where you win the tag team titles, and then for some reason, whether it be one person or the individuals, they're just not clicking on the same page, and it looks like it's going to implode. Is it going to happen? I don't know. I don't see it going that way. That's why I see them retaining the titles. But let's be honest, Jeff, as we break down, we're breaking down Deadline here, but as we look at this roster and we talked about it at nauseum to a degree in certain shows we've done before in the past where like there's some excitement going on in this roster. You can be excited for certain things, obviously looking at improvements for certain sections of the roster, but this tag team division, which to me was one of the strongest points of what NXT was before in the past, isn't quite there yet. Can it get there? I think so. But right now, when we used to talk about NXT tag team title matches, that was usually like that was the one that was going to steal a show. It's going to be a good match, but right now the main thing is are the tag team champions going to implode? Are they going to lose their titles? I don't think it's going to happen in this one.
Oh, I think it's going to be most likely it will happen. I think it's gotten to a point now, especially when Nathan Frazier is going to do that double duty as he's going to be involved in that Iron Survivor Challenge. So I think that this is the beginning of the end. I think it happens Saturday, and I think that we'll see new tag team champions. Charlie Dempsey is already the Heritage Cup champion. Ren Sinclair is actually involved in the Women's Iron Survivors. So obviously things are looking up and pointing up for Charlie Dempsey's group for the No Quarter Catch crew, which I'm not surely a big fan of that name. But obviously, Charlie Dempsey, we know, is the son of William Regal. So there, obviously, you have that pedigree for Charlie Dempsey. But honestly, this is a team that's being pushed, and I think that they could possibly, I think they'll become the new tag team champions. And you talked about the tag team division. What's missing, Trendsetter? Is it just more established tag teams? Because we're going to get into it. It's going to be a pattern here. And it's not going to get to the point where we talked about the women's division because that's just another level. But the men's side, we talked about the men's heavyweight division, the men chasing for Trick Williams' heavyweight championship. There seems to be just a lack of that depth of opponents, and just I know they're trying to build people, so we're going to give them a little bit of leeway here. But what's missing right now? Established tag teams, is that what you're looking for here in NXT that's kind of currently lacking on the roster right now?
I mean, I wish there was a simple solution to all of it. I wish I could give you just a one word answer here. Like you said, to your point, they are trying to slowly build this back up again. But what happens is when you've overrun in terms of created so much somewhat established talent outside of WWE, and let's say in the women's division, you know what they're doing with the men's division in terms of trying to build that back up. You got the shape and Trick Williams there. For the tag team division, I think the one thing that's missing is yes, they are emphasizing stories to build around it, but I don't think you're seeing enough tag teams. I mean, if the only story that I'm looking at is really just for the NXT tag team titles, then I lose a lot of scenarios where similar to the women, similar to the men, you need other stories involved, whether it's one-on-one, personal. It doesn't always have to be for a title, but I need to see more teams together because it really feels sometimes that these teams that are happening are just being pitted together. They're just like they're no team names or concepts. When you had, the revival, you had, Alpha, I would say Alpha Academy, but American Alpha. I mean, and the list goes on Chamber DIY. These are just to name a few teams that they just worked really well together. I'm not saying that's not happening now, but there's just doesn't seem to be something that clicks where people are like, I want to see these two teams. They're the best right now in NXT. I can't wait. You just don't get that feeling, I feel, right now as the slow build begins. And I think that's what's missing right now. There's not enough established teams that can build a story outside the tag team
Well,
title.
you just said it though. You said I just said established teams, and then you just said established teams. So I think that's what I think is missing with the tag team division, and I think that now you're basically leading into Nathan Frazier and Axiom kind of being pulled apart. So that's one tag team that's going to dissolve right away. And now, who is going to be that next team to step it up? And I think what the main thing is, Translator, is established stars, established tag teams. You don't have, like you mentioned, DIY. You don't have, even I'll even say back in the day with the Ascension, you don't have those tag teams that, okay, they're the tag team specialists, right? You're right. They're bringing some people separate, and I think too the time, they only have 2 hours on a 2 hour show on the CW to give time to a tag team division. They're gonna have to do so, and hopefully after this, when they establish a tag team that's more of a tag team like the No Quarter Catch crew, where they're a group, they're united. We'll see what happens with that. So I think the emphasis now is that they're focusing on the split with Nathan and Axiom. And I think now whoever wins this needs to be a little solidified as tag team champions. And hopefully we get the teams starting to build up because there are no well-known tag teams in this. It would have been great maybe to see the Motor City Machine Guns show up here for a few months in NXT, or maybe when they do this whole roster exchange, maybe we'll get some tag teams come in. I know they had Gallows and Anderson there for a bit, but obviously Anderson is out with an injury, so they really couldn't do the job there and establish young talent. But we'll see what happens with the tag team division. But I, towards the end of the day, think that we're going to get new tag team champions at NXT Deadline. All right, Trendsetter. As far as that, let's get to the NXT Underground, and we talked about that women's division, and we'll talk about this in emphasis right now. That women's division is very stacked, right? And not figuratively, but also literally, right? You have Miss Jada Parker and Lola Vice, and this is a specialty match here for Lola Vice. This is her game here, and this feud has been really well built up, and it's told a story. And now the finality, the culmination, will probably come this Saturday at NXT Deadline and NXT Underground match. Obviously, this match serves Lola Vice to her advantage. But can Jada Parker pull off the victory here over Lola, or will Lola continue to just climb that ladder there, that ascension into the opportunity for a very long line of people that are waiting for that NXT Women's Championship opportunity, or maybe go to or maybe get a shot at Kalani Jordan's championship? You don't know. Maybe that's why they have that secondary title. But it seems there's just a lot of a lot of opportunity here in the women's division, and you have this matchup. And will a matchup that suits Lola Vice be something that Jada Parker should be intimidated about, or do you think this suits Jada Parker's abilities as well?
Listen, one thing about this is one match I've been looking forward to in terms of what they've built up in the storyline here leading up to it, right? I don't think Jada Parker's intimidated by anything right now from the attitude she gives on TV and she presents herself. You know, she's another individual that you could say that she carries herself in the quality of a star. That's what she is, right? Lola, here's the interesting about Lola. Great to look at, great to see, does great stuff in the ring. I can't say that I really enjoy her as a face per se or as a baby face after doing such a great job as a heel. But in this scenario, I don't see it ending at Deadline. I see the story still continuing because if you were to look at the scenario here, it'd be 1-1. And I think there's still room for a third one if they're trying to make this very personal between the two of them. Because here's the thing: if they were to finish here and then Lola goes somewhere else, where does Jada go? If Jada goes for the women's North American title, where does Lola go? I think these two women still need each other. I think it's a great opportunity to continually build this hatred for the two of them. So I think this will be for Lola. I think she'll walk away victorious here because this is her world. This isn't Jada's. But again, Jada's not coming in intimidated one bit for it. So I feel it will build the anticipation, a hard fought victory for Lola, and I think it will build the anticipation for a third match, a rubber match.
All right, I will say that nothing scares Ms. Jada Parker. Nothing will scare her. I think that this suits her, and she wants to take it to the streets. She wants to get her hands on Lola Vice. And honestly, I'll say, as much as I love Lola Vice here, I think right now momentum and steam goes to Jada Parker, and I think that she will come out victorious at the NXT Underground matchup. So obviously that's another matchup though that we're looking forward to because this is NXT specialty here with these Underground matches. Lola Vice and Shayna Baszler had the last one too, so that was very interesting as well. And we'll see what happens, man. But I'm really going to give the edge here to Jada Parker, but I could definitely see Lola Vice coming out victorious as well. So this is very much of a toss-up in this one.
But don't you see how they're building it for Lola to a certain degree? So this is like right down her alley.
No, this is her style. But I mean, like you were saying before, though, nothing's gonna scare Jada Parker. Nothing's gonna scare her. She's in the streets, man. She's built for this stuff. She's tough. She's a tough woman. I mean, look what she did
Yeah,
in
but
that
this is
Philly.
the streets, Jeff. This is some of an octagon
But
here.
look what she did in the Philly street fight, though. I mean, I know she used a brick. I know you won't be able to use a brick here, but I mean, she can really, really defend herself here. And yes, I'm going to give the martial arts skills to Lola Vice. Obviously, of course, again, this suits her. She has the home field advantage here. But if anyone can come out victorious, it's going to be Jada Parker. So I'm going to say Jada, you say Lola. And it's good that we disagree like this because that is what HSP is all about. It's all about the discussion. And again, make sure you're watching this NXT preview. It will be available to you guys. And if you agree with us or not, let us know and follow us on all our social media. But make sure you give the Give Shot Network a like. And also make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell. All right, Trendsetter, moving along. We've got the NXT title match. Trick Williams and Ridge. If you want to come after me, Ridge, if you wanted to try me, come after me. Listen, I'm if you're a Stu Hart fan, you're gonna get that. But championship is on the line. Ridge, Holland, I mean, they're doing everything they can to make this guy a significant challenge for Trick Williams. But I don't know, man. To me, he just is bland. I know he got rid of Chase U, and we thank him for that. We thank him for the demise of Chase University. But to me, he's always going to be known as the guy that broke Big E's neck. And as much as they try to, I'm not holding it against him because it happens. But right now, to me, that's still his claim to fame. They've done a lot. They've even had this whole segment with Eric Bischoff on the previous episode of NXT on the CW. And he laid out Trick. Is it believable that he can get the victory over Trick? Of course. But I don't think this rivalry helps Trick out a lot because I'll tell you what we want to see. And maybe we'll see it because I have a theory for this NXT Men's Survivor, Iron Survivor Challenge, and we'll talk about that. I don't think that one of the competitors will make it because I think somebody else, but I'm gonna spoil it right now. I mean, I think that the match that we want to see is I don't know where he's been. I don't know where his whereabouts. We haven't seen him in a while, and that's Obafemi. And this to me is the matchup that I want to see. I know they got to build. I know they got to tell a story. I know maybe they're saving this for maybe 2025. But right now, we're talking about the men's division. We're talking about all the challengers. And Carmelo's gone. Ilya Dragunov is hurt, and he's now on the main roster in on Monday Night Raw. There's something they're just missing people. I like Lexis King. I like Ethan Page. I think they're good, but they just need more challengers. And I am not a big fan of Ridge Holland. And I see Trick Williams coming out victorious. Nothing much to analyze because I think they're just building up Ridge for a guy for Trick to beat. And has Trick been really impressed you? Has been impressive and impressed you recently? So. I'm still on the Trick Williams bandwagon, but not as much as I was in the beginning as we headed into WrestleMania for TakeOver, where he finally got his victory over Carmelo Hayes. So what I'm trying to say is, Trendsetter, are you a believer of Ridge Holland? Do you think this men's division is lacking depth? And are you still on the bandwagon for Trick Williams?
No, I'm not a believer in Ridge Holland. Plain and simple there. Nothing against him, too, because I'm not going to say that what they've done to build up this main event for this NXT title match has been through lack of effort. They've tried really hard to make it as believable for us to think that this is a potential threat to Trick Williams' title at Deadline. But the biggest scenario that you talked about before is the depth of this men's roster now. And you mentioned Lexis King. I would like to see him somewhat involved in
He's
the
getting
title.
better. He's getting better.
Getting better. I would like to see some potential there in the sense that it might want to plant some seeds that he might get to that level. If not the NXT Championship, maybe the North American title here. You're right. I think Obafemi, that's the one everybody wants to see as we approach closer to WrestleMania season. I think that's the one people will be like, wow, that's a match I can't wait to see. That's got box office written all over it in terms of what the NXT brand is presenting you. In terms of the bandwagon with Trick Williams, I think right now all the fans like him. He has enthusiasm. He has charisma. We said all this leading up to the match where he finally got over on Carmelo Hayes and became the NXT champion, right? I think there was stuff there. The unfortunate thing in terms of for Trick, if I was in his position, is that I don't have enough talent there to work with. But then the pressure goes on Trick to make sure that each one of these matches, when you're going against a competitor like Ridge Holland, who isn't well known, he's trying very hard, and I'll give him credit for that, right? He's trying really hard. Even NXT's trying to make him into this powerhouse, unstoppable force type of character. But through his track record of what he hasn't done, for us to kind of switch as an audience right away and believe, oh my goodness, it still needs to be built up. I don't think this will be the end. Basically, I think Trick will retain his title, but I don't think it's going to be. I mean, they're already selling the neck injury. What happened the last time NXT had their show, that basically he has a neck issue after being DDT'd on the announce table. So that's going to lead into a scenario where it's going to be probably a dominant performance by Ridge, and Trick barely escapes victorious, which will lead to the fact that, hey, listen, he wants another opportunity. He'll probably get it down the road. But yeah, the biggest thing in this thing is the depth of the main roster. I still like Ethan Page. I would like to see more of Lexis King. But when you talk about it, similar in the beginning when we started this, the depth of the men's tag team division, there still needs to be time to develop these stars to make them, as you said and I said, established. And right now, you don't really have that in the men's division. So Obafemi is the one I think we all want to see. It's not a matter if, but when it's going to happen. And I think it'll happen during WrestleMania season. But I see Trick going out of this one victorious, retaining his title. But the neck injury is going to become an issue where he barely escapes the relentless destruction that Ridge Holland will put on him, which will make him look strong going into, I think, will be another title shot for him.
Now, just to clarify, are you saying that we won't see Oba towards WrestleMania season, or that this is the match that we're going to get kind of towards WrestleMania season? So you
the
think
match
we're
we're going to get towards WrestleMania season, that's the one they want to get for that. So I think that's what we're going to see down the road for him.
All right, Trendsetter. And now talking about the first of the two Iron Survivor challenges. Let's get to the men's one. We got the participants. We got Wes Lee, with the fresh haircut, Wesley. We got Nathan Frazier, who's doing double duty. I believe will be coming off losing the tag team titles with Axiom. I don't know. Maybe it opens the show. You don't know. Maybe the men's Survivor opens it up. I think the women's will main event though. So maybe we'll get a cranky Nathan Frazier. He's already split from Axiom, or maybe we'll get him in the first match. So we'll see where they go with this, but I believe that Nathan Frazier will not be champion by the time he gets into this matchup. And then you got Eddie Thorpe, Javon Evans, Wes Lee in this matchup. Of course, Ethan Page as well. Ethan Page seems to be the favorite, of course, because he's the most established one. But you guys, you've got Wesley, who is the North American champion. You got Javon Evans, who took on Randy Orton, so he's being spotlighted too. And then Nathan Frazier, obviously they like him a lot, where he's going to do double duty here. But Eddie Thorpe to me is the guy that got attacked backstage in the last episode of NXT, and here's where I think we're going to see Obafemi take that spot, and then I expect him to become the one who becomes the Iron Survivor here, because as much as I love Ethan Page, I think we've seen that already with him and Trick Williams. I don't think the fans would be clamming up for another match with Ethan Page. So as I just don't see Eddie Thorpe, getting into this match. I mean, they've not updated it yet, so we'll see whether he makes it into there. But I do think that this is a perfect spot to bring back Obafemi. Like I said, we haven't heard from Oba in quite a while here, since losing his North American Championship. So we'll see what happens here, but I'm going to go with the surprise here, and I'm going to go crazy here, and I'm going to just not pick any of these guys. I'm going to take Obafemi. I'm going to die on my sword and think this is a perfect spot for Obafemi to show up here and do damage and establish himself now, get away from that North American Championship, and go for the big prize and go eventually after Trick Williams. And I think if we get a face-off here or next Wednesday or next Tuesday on the CW, we're going to get that matchup sooner than later, and I'm looking forward to it, because this men's NXT Championship is kind of dying a slow death here with just the lack of challengers for Trick Williams. So Oba and Trick, I think we're going to get to it, and I think it starts on Saturday. What say you?
Listen, that's a great story in terms of, hey, listen, you take one out and you surprise with something people aren't looking forward to with Oba. I just don't think it's time to bring back Oba. To bring him back, because I would want to hold that off a little bit. Now, I'm sure there are going to be a lot of people saying, why are you going to hold off of something if you can have the opportunity to use it now? I get it. We're in that world right now where it's instant gratification, or sometimes you don't want to hold off something because you never know what's going to happen down the road. But I just think in this scenario, Wesley, I still haven't been able to figure him out. The only person here that I have any confidence in choosing right now would be Ethan Page. And now I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, Ethan Page again, but I think there's still some story there with Trick Williams to be done. And again, it goes back to what I talked about in terms of the NXT title match, where I think Ridge Holland, this isn't a one and done for him. I think it'll be a more of a dominant match, like 90% him, 10% Trick Williams. So it's going to leave the door open for those two individuals. And I think Oba, although I like your idea and would be great, I'm sure it would surprise the crowd, and no love for Eddie Thorpe there. But ultimately, I just don't think that, as much as that would be cool, I think what NXT is doing right now is they're committed to these stories as opposed to switch things around. So that's the feeling I'm getting. I don't see Oba interfering in this one, taking a spot. I think it will happen down the road, where not him taking somebody's spot, but it will go face to face with Trick Williams, but not this one. So I have Ethan Page coming out victorious in this one.
So you think we're going to be forced to watch Eddie Thorpe in this matchup?
Yeah.
I think good so. Lord. Oh man! All right. Well,
I know that's what you want to hear.
I just painted you a better picture.
That's what's going to happen.
All right, so he says Eddie Thorpe will get all the 5 original competitors in this matchup, and then if not, then I'm going to say you're right, Ethan Page. But again, I try to say I don't want to be. I don't want another Ridge and Trick, man. I want this to be one and done. I think there's some people that you wouldn't mind seeing get a trilogy, maybe even 2 matches. But like I said, man, it's bad enough I got to see Ridge in the main event once. I'd see him in twice. I think he'll stay around. I think he'll be in that group of people that are going to be in that mix, but I don't think that there's going to be. I think this is one and done for Ridge. I think this is just feeding they built an opponent up because they have to get you invested, and I think that this is just a one and done. While he'll stay in the main event scene, I don't think we're going to see Ridge or another one like this, and especially depending on how it goes, because I don't see there being any chemistry between these two. I would not want to be forced for them to shove another match down my throat. And I'm sorry, but that's just how I feel about this matchup here. And again, I just hope Trick gets first of all, I hope it's a good match, but I think Trick will get the job done and needs to go on to better and better things just for his sake.
I get it. But you say better things. What is better out there?
Obafemi's better.
Yeah, but if he's not, doesn't show up then what do you do? If he doesn't take the spot of Eddie Thorpe, then what else do you do? You can't tell me that you're building up this guy, Ridge Holland, for just a one and done. I don't believe you can do that.
And you can't tell me they're beating up Eddie Thorpe.
That match, I think that makes more sense.
And I don't think they're beating up a guy like Eddie Thorpe there, so that he just shows up and show how resilient he is. I think they're doing it for a comeback, and I think it's going to be over. I mean, listen, I'll take the L when we do the post show and be like, oh, okay, so you're right, Trendsetter. He didn't show up, but to me, this would be a perfect spot. And again, instant gratification. There's times where it's instant gratification, but there's times where it just makes sense. Hey, listen, you know what? This men's division is dying a slow death, and we need to bring back one of the big boys because they still have not explained why we haven't seen Obafemi not on TV yet. So we need to
You're
see
putting
him
all
back.
your eggs in one basket, saying that if it's not Obafemi, then okay,
Femi, yeah.
yeah, Obafemi, he's not there. Then Trick's got to move on. But then if it's not Oba, who's he moving on to? That's the point I'm trying to make. There's nobody else to move on to. So you got to stick with Rich Holland and you got to stick with Ethan Page until Oba's ready. If it's not happening at deadline.
It's gonna be fun post show to see what happens. Will it? All right, Trendsetter. The
Wait, let me
highlight.
clarify. I want what you just said to happen. I do. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Well, I know that's what I'm saying. It's gonna be an interesting post show, and if you want to see if I have egg on my face or whether I can, strut like a peacock and say I was right, is make sure you catch the post show. We'll be on the post show on IG Live at the High Spot Podcast, so make sure you catch us there. We'll have the post show and our reaction to all the matches at NXT Deadline. And now, of course, this one to me should main event, and most likely will main event, is the Women's Iron Survivor matchup here. And you've got stars galore. You got Giulia, Stephanie Vaquer, Zarya, Ren Sinclair, and Sol Ruka. It's gonna be an interesting match, man. It really is. And you've got three of the biggest names that WWE signed this year in Giulia and Stephanie Vaquer and Zarya. I think it's gonna be end of the day. It's gonna be those three. I really what I like to see maybe a upset with Sol Ruka, yeah, but I think she's an established star, but I don't think she's yet on that level of those three stars. And listen, you talked about me wanting to see Obafemi and Trick face to face. I think everyone now wants to see that eventual face to face between Giulia and Stephanie Vaquer. No offense to Zarya whatsoever, but I think that this is what we want to see, and I think we're going to see it. Now, here's the question, Trendsetter. Giulia arrived first. Stephanie Vaquer, a couple weeks later, showed up. And to me, it seems like Stephanie Vaquer has kind of taken that shine a little bit from Giulia, because if you look everywhere, yes, Giulia is amazing. She's improved week by week, and got the bugs out of whatever people were criticizing her about, which I thought she was excellent from the get go. But she had her critics. And Stephanie Vaquer has come in, and in her first match, people were just like going gaga over her wrestling style. She was looking a little bit more polished. She's coming off the matchup with Mercedes Moné, right, in AEW at Forbidden Door. And it seems like she's just a little bit ahead of Giulia. Just a little bit. Right now, it was neck and neck, obviously, but I think Stephanie Vaquer is just taking a little bit of the lead. And I'm going to go on and say that Stephanie Vaquer will be the one that comes out victorious here at Deadline. And I think she will take on the champion in Roxanne Perez. What do you think? Do you think that Stephanie Vaquer, first of all, you think Stephanie Vaquer is a little bit ahead of Giulia right now? Or is it just me that thinks that? Or do you think that Giulia is the one? Or do you see somebody else coming out victorious here? Because we all think it's going to be one of these three girls, and most likely Stephanie and Giulia. But do you think there could be a sleeper in this one, a dark horse?
Well, a lot to unpack there. Well, I've been telling you, we've been talking about this, and I told you I think Stephanie Vaquer has garnered a lot of the momentum and taken some momentum away from Giulia's debut. I was the first one to tell you that. You agreed with me because I just feel it's true. It's there when you see her come out, just simplistically on the entrances, you're seeing the crowd react more to her than Giulia right from the beginning, right?
I think so.
In my opinion, you can't say it's an English. It's a language barrier in terms of them. Neither of them speak English very well, so they're doing their best through what they do in the ring and how they work. And it just seems like Stephanie has more polished in-ring work than Giulia does right now. And she's trying to learn at least the WWE style. I think Stephanie's picked it up pretty quickly, and she's running with it right now. So in terms of a sleeper, though, I have to admit, though, if you were to talk to me about this a week ago, before the NXT happened, I would say, it's between I mean, I like Zarya. I like Sol Ruka a lot. I don't think, like, I agree with you. I think Sol's right there. I mean, she's gonna have a great performance here, which is gonna help her maybe in a run for the women's North American title down the road for her. I think she's there. She's getting there at least. For Zarya, I think too soon. As much as she's a dominant force and a look for her, I think it's too soon for her to get in me a title shot. Though I wouldn't be surprised if they go that route, right? But I think it's always been Giulia and Steph. And now when I look at it, when you saw the end of what happened on NXT not too long ago, there's this whole fight between the entire group, and then all of a sudden you see Ren Sinclair getting the better of Roxanne Perez with the title over her head. I'm thinking, we talked about it with Oba. Is that gonna be a surprise where Oba's gonna take a spot away from one of the men's roster in this men's Iron Survivor Challenge? Could could Ren pull the upset here and like something the crowd's not expecting at all? And then if that were to happen, you would have a underdog story of her going against going against Roxanne Perez, and then we could have a singles between Giulia and Stephanie where they can kind of pick up the rivalry they had prior to coming to WWE. So I think it works either way, but I'm not going to go that route. I'm not gonna put get egg on my face for saying that, but I think that's a possibility. We need to put it out there. But I think Stephanie Valkyr will come out victorious in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the reason they do that with Ren is just so they say that, hey, listen, she's got as well a shot as anybody else to win this one. So they're trying to sell her as having a legitimate chance and not just being an underdog. Her having a legitimate chance to come out victorious in this. But I'm going to go to what you said to close your argument, saying that it's going to be Stephanie Valkyr or Giulia, but most likely it's going to be Stephanie Valkyr. And yeah, I think that I just feel it's not even the language barrier, but you were talking about how like you connect with the audience, and she just seems to have connected a little bit more than Julia. Although I do think now though Julia is gaining the momentum, and you can't go wrong because this has been the most coveted woman in a long time that WWE really has decided to center the company as far as NXT for now, and they see her as a future superstar on the main roster. And so again, I think too is a smart idea to start her in NXT because the relatability factor might have been an issue on the main roster. So that thing where like you do have that third brand to put her on so that she can, you know, learn the North American style and the WWE way is going to serve great for Giulia and Stephanie Valkyr as well. But listen, at the end of the day, you've got stars and stars in this women's division, and I do believe it's the best women's roster in NXT. And there's to a point, Trendsetter, where I'm thinking like, man, I mean NXT, and I'm not trying to harp on the guys, but you could have an all women show for NXT, and it would probably do uh, maybe better than some of these matches that you have here on the men's side. That's how deep that they run, and with all these titles that they're introducing too, uh, as well on the main roster. I think some way, somehow, there needs to be a women's show. I don't know how they're going to do it, the logistics of it, because they got to go on Raw and SmackDown. When are they going to tape this? Maybe they cancel a main event and they have a women's show for before. I don't know how they would do it, but you look at this, and I don't think they're going to stop signing women, at all. I just think that this women's division is right now is a little bit more stacked than the men's division. And I think that in that way, this should be the main event of NXT Deadline.
Listen, I'm not going to disagree with that. I think this should be the main event. I think this is the one everyone's looking forward to. Listen, these women have closed out the last two NXT shows in the last segment of the show to close out the show. So that says something about the interest and the anticipation for this women's Iron Survivor for the number one contendership challenge, right? So I agree. I think honestly they are what everyone's looking at and tuning in on NXT to watch. They want to see this because the talent pool is so ridiculously good for this women's roster. Now, in
Absolutely.
terms of they're not going to stop signing people, you're right. They're not going to stop bringing people in, not just, for example, like established stars that come from other countries to WWE, but what they're doing, the developmental of bringing in these, collegiate athletes. And, now we have scenario where they're looking at the independent scene and looking at the very best out there to basically, be those next stars to come to the NXT system. So, I think a lot of it will depend too, and we haven't talked about it a lot too, about the partnership between TNA and WWE. I think if that continues, you have more of to work with where individuals you probably can't have on NXT could work with TNA. I mean, we saw Jordan Grace come over. I mean, I think a lot of people are thinking, when is Jordan Grace's contract coming up? Where she's probably got to be a no-brainer to be signed by WWE and NXT. So I think that it's a great problem to have. And, if I was WWE right now in NXT, I would love to have the problem to have all this woman talent and not to know what to do with it. But I think, like I said, when I broke down my scenario, even the most far-fetched one with Ren Sinclair winning this one, it still, in a way, kind of makes sense a little bit because it doesn't hurt anybody in the scenario here. Because I think ultimately everyone wants to see Giulia and Stephanie go at it. I think that's going to happen down the road. But I still feel that Steph needs to have her opportunity at Roxanne Perez, and I think a lot of people are looking forward to how these two will click together. So at the end of the day, I have Stephanie coming out victorious in this one, becoming the number one contender, and this is the one where if you're not looking forward to anything right now, you're going to skip anything, watch this main event. I think the crowd's going to go crazy for these girls. So the pressure's on them, but I think
Well,
they'll live up to it.
one last thing that I want to ask you here, and it just came to my mind because again, we all think that Stephanie Vicari is going to win here. Do you think that the expectations for Giulia were just way too unreachable when she first started? Or they just superseded expectations, and we had to temper our enthusiasm just a little bit because there was no way that she was going to match it on her start from the jump here in NXT. Because when they pulled that and she lost her matchup in the opening, to Roxanne Perez at the start, we all thought, oh, okay, this is the perfect time to give her the championship, the start of the CW. She's going to be the face. It didn't turn out that way. Do you think that loss kind of surprised a lot of people, and that's why it kind of brought her stock just a little bit down? That while NXT tried to do the right thing and like, hey, listen, man, she's going to have to build herself and chase, that not putting that championship on her that day kind of killed her momentum a little bit, where everyone was like, whoa, wait a minute. This is the girl that was coming from Japan. This is the girl that everyone was talking about, that we just couldn't wait to see, that they did this big intro for her NXT TakeOver in Philadelphia, all this all the hoopla for Giulia, and then she loses to Roxanne Perez in her first match. What do you think that harmed her in any way? That she has to build herself up, and it just, there's no way those expectations could have been met on her start in NXT.
Listen, I don't know if you're going to believe me when I say this, but I think that was probably the best thing that could have happened to Giulia. And this is the reason why I'm saying it, though, is because when she was built up and the signing that happened and the crowd knowing who she was when she was there at NXT I was going to say TakeOver, right? Stand and
Oh, did
Deliver.
I say takeover? I said takeover.
No,
I said takeover.
yeah, but to me, I'm so used to saying TakeOver.
Yeah, I stand and deliver. Yeah, stand and deliver. Yeah.
And Deliver. It's just a reflex, right? But the crowd is so enthusiastic, and her reaction, right? And you're right. WWE did build her up as the hottest free agent out there, one of probably the best women wrestlers out there. After we just seen what some superstars have come from Japan, right? And then you look at the NXT and what they brought out in terms of women talent, and the Charlotte Flairs, the Baileys, and the Becky Lynches, right? And some other person that went to AEW. And to me, the thing is, it was setting her up for failure, I feel. So if she had beaten Roxanne Perez, yes, it would have been like, oh my God, she won it. But then, in my opinion, it would have been comparable to Asuka, which I think that's what they're trying to do to a certain degree. But I think they're trying to make her a little bit more human, because then she would have won. And I think there would have been some resentment. And I think, to your point, too, that you and I talked about earlier, was the fact that she seems like she's starting to get her feet under her, where she's starting to get comfortable. If you made her champion right then and there, I think it would have been a struggle. And then I think there would have been some built up resentment from the audience, I feel. This is my belief. I don't know if you believe it or not. And I think her losing was the best thing for her, because it was a chance to reset her, because she was going off of unrealistic expectations. There's nothing she could have done that would have lived up to the expectations that the WWE and the internet wrestling community was building for her. So I think this gave her a chance to reset, to have her kind of feel a little more comfortable in this dynamic, because again, she's she even talked about in interviews before, like, it's a learning process for her. She's not used to like looking at the hard camera. She's not used to like, making sure she's in the right position for an angle that a certain camera crew wants to get her. Like, she just goes in there and wrestles, and it's one of the best at it, right? So it's still another learning process for her. So I think it was the best thing that could have happened to her. I feel it's going to build her for the long term, not just in NXT, but when she eventually does get called up to the main roster. And I think Steph's right there too. I think the difference with Steph is the fact that there was no expectations for her. She came off a great match with Mercedes Moné on AEW, and all of a sudden, boom, like, wow, what a great match. Who is this girl? We want to find out more about her. So I think when you look at Giulia, who had all the expectations in the world, and Steph, who didn't, less pressures on Steph. And I think that's why she was able to surprise a lot of people, and still surprise them to this day, where we talked about before. It seems she has a little bit more momentum right now than Giulia.
And the funny thing is, who was that matchup against where she had her kind of her coming out party? Steph Carey was against Ren Sinclair, who's also in this match as well. Again, we didn't talk about Zarya or Sol Ruka, but mad respect to them. Zarya's coming off here, and everyone wants to see maybe Jordan Grace and Zarya. Zarya is the real deal, so let's not, let's give her flowers as well. Ren Sinclair, again, is put in this matchup because it seems like she's exceeded expectations and people will have confidence in her and the underdog. She does play the underdog role well. And Sol Ruka, again, very established and is somebody that, if it hadn't been for injuries, could be a women's champion, if not, if it hadn't been for the ACL injury. So, I mean, all these women deserve it to be in the spot. And so, obviously, it's going to be probably the match of the night. And so that's, Trendsetter NXT Deadline, man, is going to be, this Saturday, and we're looking forward to it. We'll have your post show on the IG Live at High Spot Podcast. So make sure you follow us there. But guys, make sure, again, you follow us here on the Give Us a Shot Network, HSP, the Jersey Wrecking Crew. Hit that notification bell, like and subscribe here, because Give Us a Shot Network is the home for HSP, the home for Jeff and the Trendsetter. And of course, guys, I can't emphasize enough, if you can't watch us, listen to us on all podcast platforms. We are HSP High Spot Podcast. You can listen to us as well. Trendsetter, do what you do best and wrap this up and put a nice little ribbon on the NXT Deadline preview show.
Guys, thank you so much for watching and listening to us. We are the Jersey Wrecking Crew for my tag team partner, Jeff Martin. I'm the Trendsetter, Brian Berga. This has been our NXT Deadline preview show for you guys. Can't wait to do the post with you, Jeff. It's going to be exciting. Can't wait for this main event, guys. I know you're looking forward to it as well. And we look forward to doing this every single time for you guys, because we do this for one reason and one reason only. We do this for you, the crew.
We'll see you on the post show, guys.